Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. I am the Inconsequential Runner, and we are joined by Coach Mark. Hello, Coach Mark.
Hello, Darcy. Good to see you again.
Yeah, great to catch up. Great to catch up. And actually, we have got a great question for you today because we all talk about the build up to a peak. So the training cycle, training block. The question is, and this is a really good one. Should the training cycle, the build up to the peak and the peak itself, does it change by age? So we know those runners that are a little bit more mature, so those that are like 90 years and above, or maybe even people my age, 50, but I don't think so. The rate of recovery takes a little bit longer, which means you don't, from your intensive sessions, you need a little bit longer to recover, or you need to be a bit smarter about your recovery. So does that mean these factors that come with age, that the build-up period might not be so long because of the intensity that means, and the peak might not be that long? I don't know. Is it something to do with age? Is that something we should factor in? Coach Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, well, age is certainly something that should be taken into account, and yeah, you might think actually that it would be a shorter period that you would do to a peak, but I actually think that an older runner would actually take a long, they should factor in a longer period of time.
Oh, okay.
To a peak. So it's actually the other way around. And the reason I think that, because there's one of the things as we get older, we can certainly we can train pretty much as intensely and everything as we could in our 20s, for example, but the risk is greater. For us, we have a greater risk of injury and we don't recover as quick, and we can't really push the speed that we're not used to as much as well. So say when you're in your 20s, you can really come to a peak fairly quickly because you can really push the speed work, for example, and really hone your sharpness and come to a peak quite quickly if you've got a good base behind you.
Right.
But it doesn't work quite that way when you're older, because if you do that, if you really push the speed and your body isn't quite used to that, there's a much greater risk of injury, and it takes a lot longer, of course, to recover. So again, when you're really honing a peak when in your 20s, you could do a hard session every other day, for say 2 or 3 weeks, and get right up to it. You do that when you're over 50, say. You're probably not going to be able to handle that for a start. You're gonna 2 to 3 hard sessions a week would be enough, really, and you need to have bigger recoveries than you would otherwise when you're younger.
Right.
So factoring all that in, it makes sense that it would take longer, or you should factor in a longer period of time to reach your peak. So you're not forcing things, you're just increasing speed as your body is used to it.
Right, perfect. So I'm thinking, when they talk about a plane coming into land, the angle of approach. Yeah. So if we inverse that for a runner that's a little bit older, we're making that angle to approach to peak a little bit more similar, where if you're a bit younger, you can sort of ramp it up a little bit more and get a little bit steeper.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah. But there's no reason though that once you hit your peak, you can't keep it going though. Just like you did, I don't think that would make any difference whether you're older or younger. Once you hit your peak, as long as you've got a good base behind you, and you factor in those recoveries. Again, recovery is a big issue for everyone, but even more so as you get older. Because the more you race, really, if you've got a good base, the more you race, the better you get. You see, because you get more used to running at race pace. You get more used to all the little intricacies and nuances that you need to perform at your best in a race in terms of tactics and that type of thing.
Yep.
And being able to a key thing actually is being able to mentally and physically cope with an intense race pace for, when it starts getting uncomfortable, without backing off, because you've got the confidence and the training behind you to keep it going. That's where often you gain those extra seconds and minutes in a race the more you race.
Yep, gotcha. When we think about our peak, how do we measure a peak? Do we measure it by a length of time? So do we know, I suppose, almost in a biological sense, we can hold our peak for something like 4 weeks to 6 weeks? Or is it more a measure of the number of events? It can be 6 weeks if you just have 2 events, but if you do like 8 events and you do those 8 events in 2 weeks, you're gone. That's it. Your peak's over. You're in a period of exhaustion. So what sort of factors help define the length of the peak, and what sort of things can we ignore in those factors? So for example, if you said to me, by and large, you could have a peak of about 6 weeks. I don't know, I'm making up the numbers here. I'll defer to you in just a moment, Coach Mark. But if we had a peak for 6 weeks and we can do probably a maximum of 3 big races in it, but those races are half marathons, because that we're ready for half marathons, anytime we do a 5K race, we can ignore it. We don't count that because that won't challenge our body anywhere near what we're conditioned to do. So yeah, how long's a peak? How many races can we put in that peak? And what sort of races or high intensity sessions could we do in that peak that we can ignore because it won't really drain?
Yes. So there's a lot of factors there, and no easy answer actually, because again it depends a lot on. So we'll presume that you've got a really good endurance base. That's the key to all this.
Okay.
If you've got a good base of endurance, so you've put in at least 6 to 10 weeks of good aerobic running, long aerobic running, and so you're cardiovascularly very, very fit. You can that automatically increases the length of time you can hold your peak for, and then within that, so if your races are fairly well spaced, you can hold that peak for a long time. You can hold it for you could hold it for 3 months, for example.
Oh wow!
If say if you did a race and then made sure you recovered from that race and then topped things up again, then did another race. A good rule of thumb that I often use, and it's a bit simplistic, but it does seem to apply, I think. So for every mile you race, it's an old theory, hence using imperials. For every mile you race, you should have a day easy recovery effectively, which doesn't necessarily mean a rest, but it means a recovery. So if we're talking about a half marathon, 13 miles, so that's about 2 weeks.
Gotcha.
So you could theoretically run a half marathon every two weeks. But within that period, you wouldn't want to do anything too hard in between those. You see, that automatically sort of those 2 weeks are quite easy. 10K, 6 miles, you got about a week.
Yep.
5K, 3 miles is about 3 days. So that all ties up, doesn't it? Perfect. So say for a 5K, you run a hard 5K on a Saturday, a park run, you should be ready to go for a good speed session on a Tuesday.
Perfect.
There's your 3 days. So that ties in. If you run a hard 10K, you come Tuesday, you're probably not ready for a hard speed session, but you'll be right again the next Saturday.
Yeah, gotcha.
That type of thing. So you could say you could do a half. So say you could do a half marathon. 2 weeks later, you could do a 5K. Within the week, the end of the next week, you could do another half marathon, for example. All this again implies that you've got a very good base and you're being sensible with your recoveries.
Yeah, and I think that's the challenge, maybe being sensible with your recovery. Because I'll tell you why. If you run a 10K, you're on your peak, you run a 10K, you get a PB. I think there's that natural feeling of I've got this, and you want to go out and smash another 10K almost like straight away. When's the next 10K I can enter? Next weekend?
Yeah.
Let's go, sort of thing. So yeah, you're bringing that sensibility into it where you just like, nah, let your body recover. Your body was in pristine condition to be able to run that PB. If you want to get close to that PB, you've got to get into pristine condition first before you
Yes.
start doing it again. And that's all about the recovery.
Yeah. Yeah. So you get in the Olympic they don't I think they still have heats for a 10K in the Olympics. But anyway, so they might have a 10K heat and then 2 or 3 days later have the final. So I mean that goes against that rule. But the thing there is they knew that was coming up, them and their coaches, and they're prepared accordingly.
Yep. And everyone's in the same
and
boat.
after that second 10K, I'm sure they wouldn't do much for it.
No. And look, you see it in so many of the heats on the field, the track, where you see runners, they're looking around because they're doing the calculation. Am I in the top 2 or, the top 4, depending on the type of heat or whatever? And they're easing off because every ounce of effort they want to save for the next event. And when you've got runners at that level looking to save every ounce of effort, it just shows you, how important recovery is for all of us. Going into
that's right. And so you can use that sort of day's recovery thing to your advantage as you're coming to a peak. So say you've got a 5K on the Saturday. If you want to keep sharp or sharpen up, but ensure that you're recovered, you could say do a very hard 2K a week before.
Yep.
So you're going to be recovered from a hard 2K. Well, probably the next day.
Okay.
So you're not going to. So say if you ran a hard 5K, you might be okay for the next week, but it might blunt you a bit. And certainly also if you do a hard 2K, you know that you're going to be able to do another hard session, maybe 2 hard sessions in the week afterwards, so to even further prepare you for the big race. So it's a way of you think when you're peaking for a race, you want to be able to comfortably run at race pace and maintain it, but you also want to be comfortably able to run significantly quicker than race pace. So race pace then feels pretty easy.
Yeah, gotcha.
That's the goal.
It's interesting because when I started to get into running not that long ago, and I turned up, and shout out to the team that runs the track sessions on Tuesday nights and Saturday mornings, and that's Mark from WAC that runs those sessions. So shout out to that team. When I turned up there and we were doing intervals that only added up to about 3K, I thought, man, we'd be undercooked. But I understood, and these guys are fast. There's a range of those that a bit more my speed and a lot faster. So, and I thought, gosh, that wasn't a lot of Ks. But as I became a little bit more experienced, I realized the purpose behind it in terms of really tapping into that speed, but not so much it's messing you up for the week. It's giving you that growth and that improvement, but enough time to be able to recover to hit it again, maybe on Thursday, but certainly be ready for Saturday and something like that. And what I'd say is, trust those that are in that coaching position to guide you, and that's what I found that's been really handy with having a coach. I don't have to make those decisions. I don't run a great 5K on Saturday and then make a stupid decision on Monday or Tuesday, which I do, because if I'm feeling fast, I want to cash it in, and that's completely the wrong thing. And when I have a prescribed less weekly plan sent to me, all I know, or what I know, is all I have to do is follow that plan, and that'll be the best recovery. And I think that's one of the added benefits of a coach, because when you make decisions, sometimes it can be based on ego. When your coach makes a decision for you, it's based on the best interest for you. And then there's a world of difference between ego and best interest. So sometimes you need someone to just tell you something, whether it's that session at the time or the coach with the overall plan. So I've got to say, yeah, Coach Mark, sometimes when you send the plan through to me and you talk about the recovery, I'm like, is that all? I feel like I can do so much more. But yeah, it's the purpose that sits behind it. So yeah, but I've never lied. I've never run something and like deleted it off my Garmin so you couldn't see it. The fact that you can see it, I do stick to the plans there or thereabout. All right, Coach Mark, is there anything else that we should touch on in terms of the peak? That was some really fruitful information again.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess when you think of peak, if you think of it like a if you think of it like a wave graph, how you have, you know, hard days up here, easy days here. So in the early stages, you know, where the goal race is a little way away, that would be a sort of a shallow wave like that. So there's not such a difference between your hard days and your easy days.
Ah, gotcha.
And as you get closer, your hard days are right, because you're really making them count. Your easy days are way down here. So it's
okay. So the contrast between your training days, there's a much greater differentiation where early in your base. Okay. Well, that's really interesting. Hadn't thought of it that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
You keep that in mind. You keep that sort of thing in mind. You'll automatically, I think, tend to do the right thing at the right time. You know.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. That is perfect. That is perfect. So thank you, Coach Mark. For those that are watching through to now, you've just been given some really good insights. The only way to repay us, and when I say the only way, I mean, this is all you have to do. Just hit like, or if you haven't subscribed, hit subscribe. And, you know, there's no other debt. That's all it takes. And we love it and we appreciate it. And then you've got this information. Now, if you want more, if you want to be more maybe like me and my approach, and you don't want to have to do all the maths and you want someone to do it for you, I do recommend, of course, Coach Mark. His details are in the show notes, which is that drop-down box sitting straight under this video. If you want to reach out to Coach Mark and have him for your coach, drop him a line. Otherwise, yeah, if you've subscribed, you'll hear or you'll get notified when we send oh my goodness, Friday afternoon, it's kicked in when we upload another video. So yeah, thanks very much. Thanks for making it to the end. We appreciate it. Coach Mark, thanks for joining us and again asking and answering another question for us.
My pleasure.